Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's afternoon here in Geneva, and we're welcoming everybody that is here and excited to have already so many people join. And I'm sure that there are still some people coming in later and joining us as well. We're going to have an interesting Cargo IQ webinar today. And maybe I will at one moment every now and then ask Mega to hit click next slide, and I'm going to ask her that now. Here in Geneva, I'm in one room with Lucy Excel and Mega Palkar, and they helped me get through this. And with you as attendants also helping me through this, because I'm already telling you, I'm going to need all of you to help me get through this with asking me very interesting questions. Now, can you make it forward to the next slide, Mega? So on behalf of Henrik Ambach, our chairman of Cargo IQ, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, a webinar on planning, control, and evaluation, and how actually why that is important and how that benefits the industry. And we believe that we have quite some interesting solutions there. It's an important topic, probably now more than ever, although I think that we'd like to think it's always important. Now, maybe you can take us through what we're going to do today. And initially, we have a message for everybody here on the next slide, Mega. So all your microphones have been muted. The system already told you. And so you can't talk, which is okay. Well, you can still talk, but we can't hear you. That is another problem because there's a chat function and you can ask us questions. So please send us questions through the questions box. As you can see on the screen, there is this opportunity next to your go-to control console to submit a question. Now, if you have a question, and I'm sure you have them, don't hesitate, send them to us and we can address them. Hints, anything that you have on your mind, send it there. And send it to everyone so that Lucy and Mega can have a look at them and make sure that they reach me here and we can address them well, I'm not going to answer them, but with one of our guests. And as you are joining, you have seen the invitation. We have quite some interesting guests down the line. We will be joined by John Dowds from Worldwide Flight Services. We will be joined by Frosty Lau from Cathay Pacific. We will be joined by Hans Helmkamp from Hellman. And in our panel, they will be joined then by Kirsten Strauss from Kühne + Nagel. And I said it earlier, I'm here welcoming you on behalf of our chairman, Mr. Ambach, but you can probably do that separately yourself. But before I go there, just sorry, I was a bit too quick. Guys, if you, we are recording this. This is important. So don't see this as an infringement of your privacy because you're not in there with face or anything, but it's more for you to be able to pick it up later and listen later. And we will make the slides that you're looking at available through the IATA organization. Now, Mega, can you take us into the next slide? Because I already mentioned his name, and he's going to join me after one more hygienic thingy. Yes, we're covered by antitrust regulations, as we always are, and I know you're always aware of it. That means that we will, on occasion, ignore some questions if these questions would be leading us down the path of being uncompliant. We will do not anything. We will not discuss anything that would bring us into anti-competitive behavior, like discussing fares, charges, sharing of traffic or revenues, or anything that would change the way our industry competes with itself. Now, as a result, you may not see your question pop up if it's one of those. So just so you are aware. And of course, our panelists will also steer away from these topics, and we will remind each other if we, for whatever reason, go there. Now, I've already told you a couple of times that I have somebody waiting for you to introduce themselves to you. Henrik Ambach is on the next, he's next up to help us talk about what is going on. And Henrik, maybe you can welcome our audience and unlock. Okay, you're there. I'm not sure if you're still muted, but I will mute myself and then please welcome the people on the call.
I have at least attempted to unmute myself. Welcome, everybody. It is a great pleasure again to be in the frame of Cargo IQ, something that those of us who work with it are very happy to be involved with. Cargo IQ is important to us because quality remains important to what we're doing. In these COVID times where some of us are already involved in early vaccine logistics, you again get reminded how important quality is. We all operate in a fragmenting supply chain with forwarders, airlines, ground handlers, truckers. So a composite solution is what the ultimate client, the shipper, is enjoying. And putting that together in a way where quality also becomes something we as participants can actually manage is quite important. Cargo IQ has been around for a long time, started under a different name, has its current name, and is the only industry organization where the stakeholders on an equal term actually develop what we are using in our everyday. And this is where you become important, because you as a participant can be part of shaping what Cargo IQ is making available for its participants. The standards we have, the master operating plan, and the new things, exciting ones that we're going to hear about today, are all the result of members having sat together, had some needs, discussed with fellow members, and coming up with solutions. And that is the real value of Cargo IQ, and that's why it's so great to see so many of you here today. It's important to bear in mind that it's a collaborative effort, which means that once in a while, initially, we may not totally agree, but through the good discussion, we come to good resolutions, and you can actually be part of creating the solutions for the future. Important to bear in mind that we are collaborative. That means it's a joint effort. We may be registered, as you would know, as an IATA interest group. That is more a question of facilitation. It is not in any way showing a bias for one of the players in the industry. The players do come together and do collectively provide the outcomes that we all enjoy. I hope that, because that's what I understood from the agenda, that we'll have a very interesting day today, and you will hear about some of the new things that we are bringing to the industry that's going to help all of us do a better job of what we're doing in a composite supply chain. So I hope you're going to enjoy the next 1.5 hours. I'm quite sure that I will, and look forward to some intriguing questions, and at the end, a panel debate that is probably going to bring us all of us extra thoughts that we hadn't thought about before. Welcome and enjoy.
Thank you for that, Henrik. You definitely feel me very welcome, and I'm sure that everybody on the call feels very welcome now as well. And you're right. We have to have some various topics addressed today, and so let's go directly into it. Maybe you can give it the next slide, because as you said about it, Henrik, the industry faces a challenge, the air cargo distributed service delivery model that we have. And you mentioned about it earlier, as you said, you called the industry fragmented, and actually we like to see it differently. The distributed service delivery model is, of course, the result of having all these different companies involved, and every company is specialized in their own little niche, and it has some great advantages. As a combined industry, the air cargo industry can deliver solutions that no other mode can deliver, whether it's ocean, road, or express, or anything. Nobody can deliver some of the solutions we have, not at that efficiency. Efficient use of resources that we are doing, sharing infrastructure, sharing ground handling facilities, sharing airports, even sharing, let's say, from a carrier perspective. And when I say we, I'm talking about the industry, but if I would look at our membership, because we have everybody of the industry in our membership, we are a truly collaborative organization. But if I look at it from we as carriers, we use one single interface that we share with other carriers to our customers. They talk to forwarders. Forwarders, they use the various operators behind them, and they have a good choice. It makes us very efficient, but also flexible. This choice that forwarders have on solutions they can offer their customers is something nobody else can rival, at least not as quick and not as versatile as we can do it as an industry. And the resilience in our solutions is also very, very much. It's not just one system that if it breaks down, there's nothing else. There is always alternatives that forwarders find for their customers. So this great model that we have for distributed service delivery is what other people sometimes call fragmented, and we just like to call it a distributed service delivery model, which has great advantages. And that's why it's here, and that's why it will be here for always. But it's not just rosy and good. There are some challenges that come from it. We need alignment. Our processes between various providers are challenging. We're not one company. And so our carriers have to talk to their ground handlers what they expect, and the forwarders have to express their wishes to the carriers, and we need to be clear on what we do, and we keep informing us on what they may expect. So that also has to do with transparency, and sometimes our industry is not transparent by nature. Execution and planning is not so easy, and of course, looking at a problem, 2 or 3 people looking at a problem, they always look at it differently, and different companies looking at the same problem always come up with different views. So what is this reality? This is the challenges. But is this a problem? Yes, of course, for the industry, but for us as Cargo IQ, it's the challenge. This is what we want to address. So maybe we can take it to the next slide, because plan, deliver, learn together. For us, industry cooperation is the strength that brings us together. That's why we can offer solutions that nobody else can. And that's why we believe there is a good place for our organization in our cooperation. And the main thing that drives us as Cargo IQ as a quality organization is that if we want to work together and offer all and benefit from all these great advantages of distributed service delivery models, we need reliability, because always another company, always your customer and their customer are depending on our process outcome. So we need to be very reliable. And that is where Cargo IQ comes in. Visibly better, not being just better, but creating a layer of transparency and showing what we're doing. We're an industry-created full supply chain community that improves the air cargo customer experience by basically plan, deliver, learn together. And that's actually our mission: plan, deliver, learn together. And we talk about various places that acts on our processes. On the offer and acceptance, we want to make sure that there's clear service commitments by all our members, whether they're ground handlers, carriers, or forwarders, to their customers, and the other way around on what is agreed. End-to-end transparency in planning and execution. So not just agreeing what we do, but be clear about how we do it. And then after execution, we want to look at what we've done. We want to look at what we've agreed, what we requested. Was it given? Was it delivered? And then we want to learn from that and redesign what we're doing. And that whole circle we call the continuous service improvement circle. And that is, in an essence, what Cargo IQ does. Lots of activities around its mission. Now, taking us back to another way of looking at that, and maybe Mega, you can press click. There are some strategic objectives that we derive from our missions, and we cut them up into 2 themes: things that address the industry basics and things that address the future of our industry, basically. And these are the 2 themes that we translate our mission in, and it should be basically the vibe of everything we're doing. And I think it's important that we understand that one truth for all shipments: to have clearly agreed service commitments, planning, and transparent execution evaluation for all shipments. All our members should do all their shipments, because we believe that all shipments should be involved. Otherwise, you still have to run that backup for, let's say, the backup process for if you don't know how it works through Cargo IQ shipments. Or potentially one could evaluate a provider and think they're doing very well or very poorly, and that's just because you're looking at a part of their shipments. Also, real business, real targets. We want to measure and plan and evaluate exactly in line with what really goes on, so that our ground handlers actually get benefits from what we're doing, and our carriers actually know and how to plan and can agree on reality, and we actually agree what we expect from each other. So the closer to the reality of how we do our business, this is the way we should set our targets. And then, as I said earlier, for us, Cargo IQ, we see the industry as being a distributed delivery service. So we need to be transparent and relying on each other. We believe one service delivery management tool is important for our industry, more now than ever, probably, given COVID and the upcoming logistical challenges that we see. But it needs to be uniform. So we are open on our standards. We have the MOP. We share that with the world. It's not just us, because we want to see the world have a chance at look what we're doing. One service delivery management tool. We provide that tool, but more important for us is that everybody understands and subscribes to those standards. And then, of course, the future goes beyond that. We want to be able to express different products. If we agree different things, then we should also plan for different things, and we should also check whether delivery is in line with what we agreed. and our planning. So not everything is flight specific, not everything is an express shipment, and not everything is general cargo. When we have these different products, we want to cater for them. And it's not just about moving things, it's also about how we move things. We would like to make sure that we also plan, or as I say, actually offer a way of planning and control for the conditions under which shipments are moving. Not so much as a tool for quality assurance, because they're there already, but far more as a tool for creating control and planning on how to execute shipment care. And we are doing some great strides there. And maybe you should consider joining us in our working groups to see what we're doing there, but maybe we get to address that a little later. And of course, for us, I said it earlier, and it ties into the first, on our basic industry coverage, we do realize that every shipment needs to be measured. Every shipment needs to be planned, controlled, and evaluated. At least in our vision, it means we need to develop the membership. We need to grow it, and we need to develop our membership. That means the members that we have in our membership, they should become better over time, and that's why we have audits, and that's why we continually work on our standards in our working groups, and we get together all the time. And I think Henrik already said we're working on this together. That's why that is number 4 in our mission. Maybe we go on, otherwise I keep on talking. Yes, Mega, that is perfect. So planning, control, evaluation, those are the themes for us in what we actually do. Now, go a little bit through what that means. For planning, that means that we plan for shipment movement. We plan for custody. We do that in route maps. So we make, when every shipment, not just one, but every shipment through Cargo IQ, it gets a planning. It shows what is going to happen, by whom, at what stage in its life cycle as a shipment. And then when we control it, that means that we are transparently, continuously replanning to make sure that the planning is up to date. We monitor the progress of the shipment, and we respect the committed services that are underlying that. And that is important, because otherwise, how can we evaluate? Because shipments, processes, providers, and services, service agreed services, of course, and products, they all need to be evaluated in line with what was agreed earlier. Now, I'm closing to the end of my little bit. So maybe you can click one more time, and yeah, click, because the next person is John Dowds of WFS. And John, maybe you get your, I see you already have your screen on, that's perfect. Now, I hope I didn't bore the people too much, because now you can take us into the real world of how it is to be a ground handler and add some, wake them up again, because
I'll do my best, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Good afternoon, everyone. Just maybe go on to the next slide, please. So just for those who may not know about us, a little bit of background. WFS is one of the biggest handling companies in the world. We're represented globally across 175 locations in 22 countries. I've been with the company now 3 years, and we're a very committed member of the Cargo IQ community, from our CEO all the way down through the senior management team. And then we'll talk a little bit further about how we've engaged the people within our business in terms of Cargo IQ. Next slide, please. One of the first projects that I inherited when I joined the company was the ability to kind of standardize how we viewed ourselves across to our customers. We had bought a lot of businesses through acquisition, so we had different mindsets, different SOPs, we had different learnings of training, standards of training across the businesses that we'd bought. So the idea was to try and make us a global company and more centralized in our viewpoint, and spread that message efficiently through the company. One of the key tools for doing that is what we call CQC. It's our Cargo Quality Center. And that is based against the principles and the setup of Cargo IQ. So we follow the shipments in a live environment. As they go through the processes, there's a traffic light system that tells us whether we are off track, on track, or nearly going off track. So we very much have built into our daily operation as to what we do. And it's something that we then use both internally as a tool to use, but also in terms of allowing our customers to see our operation. So we're very transparent about what we do. It's not without its challenges, and we'll get on to that, some of them in a minute, but the point I guess I'm trying to make from a handling perspective is we've adopted Cargo IQ into our business as a core set of principles, as a core set of standards and processes that we measure, because that was our aim and because our customers expect that of us. On to the next slide, please. So in terms of CQC, what we have within the system, and this is where some of the confusion then can arise on some things, is we either have the SLA times from some customers or we are given the offset times, and this is what we measure against. We will get onto on the next slide then, that's one of the challenges for the handler, is the system I feel is very much obviously designed with the forwarders and the airlines in mind, and in terms of visibility of information and in terms of the offset times and knowing them without individually the customers telling us, then we don't have that same level of visibility that is afforded to you, and that's something I'd like to see be progressed going into the future. As I said before, we have the live operational performance screen, so we can look at everything from what's happening now in our warehouses all the way through to what the trends have been over the last few months and what our performance has been, and we give that view to our customers as well. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's in the ethos of what we do, and we're very much aligned with it. Next slide, please. So what are our challenges in relation to Cargo IQ? As I've just said, the offset times, in some examples we're seeing, first of all, we don't have the visibility coming out of the systems in the same way that it does for the forwarders and the airlines. I think there's room to progress that going forward. I think we are a key part of this going forward, and maybe that's something that can be looked at. I'd certainly like to put it on the agenda there. It was mentioned in Arian's remarks about operational reality, where we do have visibility on some offset times. They aren't totally aligned to what is happening in our business sometimes, and that causes confusion, and it also causes difficulty in terms of what we're measuring for our customer airlines and how they are measuring us, and sometimes there can be differences. So that leads to challenges, it leads to misunderstandings in terms of performance levels and so on. So we need better visibility. We need to work on those differences where there are differences, because that's one of the challenges for us and causes us challenges within the operation. And then to ensure, as has already been said, that it matches the operational reality. And in some examples, we see that the offset times are not set to do that. So that's something, again, we would like to address going forward. And then the last slide, Mega, if you would. So one of the challenges for us, and one of the things that obviously we'd like to see, is we handle Cargo IQ represented airlines and non-Cargo IQ. That has an overall impact on our business, and of course, where we don't have Cargo IQ airlines working to those standards and practices, then it impacts how we can perform. And that ultimately affects what we are able to offer. So if you take an example of closeout times, I mean, obviously there's time built in there where we have to actually handle the cargo and the documentation, but also because we don't receive good data on every shipment coming the whole way through, there's also contingency time built in there. So the more shipments that we can get through where we have all of the information readily available to us, then the quicker we can process, the more efficient we can be, the better the service that we can offer. So I think it's in everyone's interest through the supply chain that we are further enabled to do that as much as possible. we're very much a believer in the exceptional handling codes. We're actively involved in that process, and it's as much as identifying shipments that are going correctly through the system as they should do, and through the roadmap as they should do. Understanding those who don't, and why they don't, and where they went wrong is equally important. And we're a key part of that because of our business within the chain. We also see then with the development of the FIW, FOW, it's a very important part in terms of recognizing when it comes to the warehouse or when it leaves the warehouse, that we can get a better analysis on what we do and be able to share that with our customers. And we see in the world at large that big data and the ability to be able to break down to more component parts is the way the world is going. This is the way we all have profiles on social media and so on. They're able to tell a lot just by what we do and what we click and so on. We have a lot of that data available within our business, and what we're actively trying to do then is break down the component parts so we can see where we can improve and therefore offer our improvement to the customers. And that's where a lot of our focus goes on. And then my final statement at the bottom there is we want to be able to compete with everyone else out there who has a seemingly seamless supply chain. And again, as was mentioned, I think in Henrik's remarks, we are a multitude of companies trying to compete in that market. So we have to be better at doing what they do. And in order to do that, we have to share information and discuss and improve as we go forward. And for our part, WFS then is trying to make very sure that we're very actively involved, that we're able to share the key information, and obviously able to challenge the community within Cargo IQ so we can progress it going further forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And maybe Mega, you can click to the next slide so that Frosty can get ready. John, that was a good story, and it's good to see that it actually gives you some challenges, that there are some misalignments every now between what is planned for you, the offsets, and what the carriers are doing. And we will get back to that later on in the panel discussion, because I think it's an interesting topic. And we're going to talk to now, yes, we're going now to talk to somebody that's actually on the other side of your SLAs quite often. Frosty, General Manager Cargo Service Delivery for Cathay Pacific Airways. Welcome, and maybe you can better tell your story than I can, so please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Greetings from Hong Kong. Well, I think let's go to the next slide, Mega, thanks. Yeah, I think quite quickly about Cathay, we're actually Hong Kong based, one of the founding member of Cargo IQ. Actually, since 20 years ago, actually we started actually with that, and actually currently, well, pre-COVID time, we were measuring up to 160,000 shipment of our shipment, and actually all of them are up to Cargo IQ standard. And we are CIB Pharma and CIB Fresh certified, so we take care of the quality of shipment actually very seriously. Let's go to the next slide. I guess what we actually trying to address in Cargo IQ community is really try to address some of the industry pain points, especially for some of the locations where there will be lack of transparency of data and the handling capability. And at times, actually, some of the warehouse storage might be at issue. And I still remember that one of the warehouse that I've been to in Dhaka, actually, you actually prefer not to use the cool room than using it. And these are actually more on terms of the transparency and the language, that alignment of the use of language is even more important. And let's go to the next slide. So where Cargo IQ can help us as a carrier and also with the rest of the community is actually getting back the basics right. And the implementations of Cargo IQ allow members, including carriers, GHA, and also some freight forwarders, to plan and control on the route map according to SLA, which is very important. So you see, as I talk about language quite a bit of times, so standardizations of terminology is very key. And next is really about visibility. How can we be more transparent across the chain of movement, and also looking at continuous improvement opportunities. And these actually, with all these actually in place, it will help us to address some of the pain point of timely information, transparency, and drive actions together. Next slide, please. So just quickly on examples, under normal situations, so Cargo IQ allows visibilities of the end-to-end journey being monitored. And for example, for as long as book, if there's indicating a 5% of outlier, then the 5% shipments means that it's probably being offloaded that need protection. So the next slide would actually help us to look at what we can do with the implementation of exceptional handling code that Cargo IQ membership team has been actually really working through in the past years, where actually allows to enhance visibility of irregularities, and second, actually ensure the replanning at shipment level in an adequate manner, and also if the GHA actually have the system to allow us to fit in the code, they will actually provide the information in a digital manner to allow carriers to better plan for the space utilizations, both on the first leg or even the second leg actually at the hub. So the code feeding actually from Cargo forwarders via CDMP for their own reference, so that depends on the need of the freight forwarders. They will be actually also trying to do different actions with the data and information available to them as well. So the next slide, we will be talking about how we make use of quality control on GHA. So Mega, can you actually click 2 more as well? So with that, we actually, well, I think I probably actually can complement with what John mentioned. I think we're pretty excited about actually the FIW, FOW implementation, potential implementation, because besides the major milestones of the measurement of SLA that we could be using, and allowed our carriers to conduct QC, we will also provide more transparency in terms of some of the shipment. For example, if you have something actually wanted to be in the cool room, so when and how actually that actually go into is quite key. So it would help us to have better transparency to help us to serve our customers, the freight forwarders, and ultimately the shippers as well. So the next slide actually would tell us actually what the Cargo IQ team working with the membership in terms of developing something called the care protocol. This is actually a lot of great work in the past 2 years, looking at what are the additional milestones that will be meaningful to the end customers. And then the implementation of this would allow carrier to check with the GHA on the facility's readiness and also ensure product integrity by capturing the right parameters at shipment level. And the data capturing throughout the journey would prompt the GHA to take relevant action if there's a significant deviation according to the plan has occurred. And of course, if the transparency is also available to the freight forwarders or the shippers, they might also want to take some other follow-up actions as well, including replanning another shipment, another batch of shipment going to the destination. And last but not least, actually, the last slide that I'm going to talk through is about how we make use of the data. First of all, internally, we actually use Cargo IQ as part of the balance scorecard that we have for all of our pod performance, and we actually make use of this protocol to work with the GHA to measure their performance as well. So every month, we will be actually looking at whether there are certain trends in certain links if there's any issue, and we can also use it to predict some of the links reliability as well, so that we'll be able to revise and review our product offering to our customers. And also, we also speak with our customers, the freight forwarders, on the same language, using Cargo IQ parameters to say, okay, this month, how are we performing? Is there anything you want us to work on? And then also we can have very good discussion about what are potential product or service that our customers might want as well. I think Cathay has been joining Cargo IQ over 20 years. What I see is actually there's a community mindset about quality, and also actually we are progressing with time, especially during times that actually everyone's talking about digitization, and we are also working towards more transparency as well. And I see actually much more has been achieved in the past few years. So do join us if you're interested in quality and how to manage your shipment better. Thank you. Aaron, pass back in time to you.
Thank you for that, Francie. It was good to hear the side from one of our carrier members. And I think that everybody, what we're seeing is we have somebody give a story and then put their customers right behind them to see if that was true. And I think we're going to do that now. We're going to talk to Hans, or no, Hans is going to talk to us. And Hans, tell us how you look at all of this from the view of a forwarder, who is in the end the closest to what is our customer, the shipper.
Okay, thanks, Arian. Yeah, my name is Hans Helmkamp. I'm representing Hellman Worldwide Logistics at Cargo IQ and responsible for the development also of our own CDMP, which we are running and which is part of our global air freight TMS, so that we are able to receive all the Cargo IQ data in our operational environment and to work according the Cargo IQ business rules and standards. With this presentation, I will give you like to give you an explanation from the forwarder's perspective why the new service parameter concept, which is under the development of Cargo IQ, is important, as it is designed for more flexible, precise and reliable planning, control and evaluation amongst the air freight supply chain. This is the next step we want to jump in. Next, please. Freight forwarders are under a lot of pressure from their freight customers. Offer tailor-made logistics solution on a favorable terms. The service portfolio must also be structured accordingly. So we have time-definite air freight products and services. This will be offered to our customers as a price attractive service and has a special, is based on a special transit time. For example, a product ECO7, which means cargo must be traveled or must be at the destination within 7 days. Customized air freight products and services. This is more and more important, not only for us, for the whole forward industry. Special industries such as automotive require what is known as just-in-time or even just-in-sequence delivery to the production line. These shipments are highly time-critical and must be monitored carefully. In addition to this, we have temperature control products. In addition to a short travel time, it is particularly important for these products that the cold chain is not interrupted. Customers are now demanding that the temperature of the goods in transport containers be monitored. In these cases, temperature management is guaranteed by so-called data loggers. Another important point is that customers are more and more requesting the information from the forwarders with regards of shipments and transport orders, etc. So they are requesting more and more new technologies such as API, application programming interface, and this is really becoming a mandatory part of logistic tenders. Synchronous communication in real time between different applications is now more and more replacing the old-fashioned asynchronous communication. Next. In order to meet the increasing demands of the air freight logistics chain, service level parameters can be an instrument. Logistics contracts between the freight forwarders and its customers are usually monitored already by service level agreements. These service level agreements need to be set between freight forwarders and airlines, as well as between the airlines and ground handling agents. This gives the airlines the opportunity to better utilize their capacities and the freight forwarders to plan their export and import processes more precisely and reliably to offer tailor-made products and services to our customers. Next, please. Air freight shipment planning, control, and evaluation is done at present based on the operational milestones derived from the Cargo IQ Master Operation Plan. The operational milestone KPI NFD currently defines the airline's promise to provide the cargo and documents at the destination airport at a certain time. Many years of experience shows that this milestone is too static to clearly and reliably depict the commitment between the airline and the freight forwarder to meet new requirements in air freight. The prerequisite for the introduction of service level parameters is the delinking of the commercial service level from the operational milestone. The cornerstone of the service level agreement are marked by the milestones LAT, which means latest acceptance time at origin, and LTA, which means latest time of availability at destination. While LAT is already part of the airport-to-airport roadmap as planned milestone time, LTA, latest time of availability at destination, is a new milestone for planning and evaluation of the latest time of availability, in line, of course, with the LAT. This is a deadline to evaluate whether the shipment has been made available on time. The LTA is then evaluated against the operational milestone and NFD at shipment process level. The calculation of the planned time of LAT and LTA also takes into account the open hours of the origin and destination facility and are therefore very precise and reliable. For transport planning, both LAT and LTR are mandatory KPI milestones. Next. No, it's okay. The total transit time defined as a transit time between LAT and LTA. The forwarders can use this service for shipments which has to be traveled in a defined travel time. The advantage for the airline is the airline can book the cargo on a flight of its choice. The same with route-specific cargo. It has to be shipped on a predefined route requested by the forwarder for a special reason. But at the end, the airline also can book the cargo on flights of its choice, but has to consider the special routing request from the forwarder. Flight-specific parameter, the cargo must travel on specific flight as per booking request. For shipments of special industry customers such as pharma or perishables, also for flights where the forwarder has a block space agreement with the carrier on specific flights, or the cargo must fly on a freighter due to size of the cargo. Also, a combination of the service parameter can be possible also. Important, of course, is that the cargo is at the destination available for pickup by the forwarder prior to the LTA time. The condition is 100% transparency, meaning route maps, actual events for 100% of the shipments of Cargo IQ carriers, backed by exception handling processes to inform forwarders about the reason for a problem at operational milestone level. This is, for example, very important for excuse me. This is important for customized shipments, for shipments which has to be on time. The example, perishable, pharma, or even automotive shipments. And communication in real time. So we are using all the information in our TMS for planning and also for execution of a shipment. Next, please. No, go back, please. The door-to-door air freight transport consists of the export part, the main leg, airport to airport, and the import part, airport to door. The freight forwarder is the responsible logistics provider for the entire door-to-door transport towards to the customer and book service on all three legs with the respective service providers. At the time of booking, the planned delivery time is set with the customer based on the service level agreement and the transport order, which then sets the service promise to the customer. This KPI milestone is reflecting the forwarder's promise to its customer, and it's called POD. Since the main leg is the most important critical part of the door-to-door transport, the planning of the logistics services for door-to-airport and airport-to-door is based on the service level agreement with the airline. Thus, the export and import process planning is depending on the planned time of latest acceptance time of the export side and LTA on the import side of the airport to airport transport. Next, please. Yeah, just a conclusion. With the new service parameters, we will have a better alignment of our air freight services and products with those of the airlines. Commercial KPI milestones, LAT and LTA, allow forwarders more precise and reliable planning of the complete door-to-door transport. Airlines are getting the option to optimize their capacity utilization. But once again, the condition is 100% transparency, route maps, actual events for 100% of the shipments in real time. An exception handling process has to be implemented, and measure and reporting of the service commitment performance. In the future, the service parameter will allow to plan, control, and evaluate based on the service level agreements relevant to the shipment and to evaluate better in terms of compliance and performance promise. The introduction of service parameters support the changing requirements due to the strong increase in shipment in the area of special freight, as well as in complex logistics change, and is supporting the need of the airlines to optimize their capacities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you, Hans. That was a very, very thorough and good insight into what moves a forwarder in being a member of Cargo IQ. And it's clear that you have a very good insight of what all technical goes there. We have some more people, however, that I would like to join the conversation now. Now, please, everybody, unmute yourself and maybe also make yourself visible. That would be very nice. And then I may, in the meanwhile, introduce the fourth panel member that hasn't spoken so far. And maybe if you want to, you're more than welcome to introduce yourself shortly yourself, Kirsten. Kirsten is VP Air Logistics and Operations for Global Air Logistics at Kuehne + Nagel. And Kirsten, would you just briefly say hello and let us hear your voice? And then we can take it into the panel.
Of course. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Also a warm welcome from my side. Also in my role here in this group as vice chair to Henrik, as a board member in the Cargo IQ group. KN has also been one of the founding members of back in the days Cargo 2000, and we all remember well. So we have been on this journey also a very long time. And my group here in our head office in Schindellegi is basically looking after our internal data quality topics that relate obviously very closely to the principles and the milestones and the parameters we have agreed as a membership organization here as Cargo IQ. So very much looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, well, I think it would be an interesting discussion because we have everybody involved in this, in delivering the services to your customer, Kirsten, and that of Hans, the shipper, who it's all about. And you are representing their voice here because I think that more than anybody, you are acutely aware of their needs. And this is why we as an industry do it, right? To deliver a service to the shipper, and then in exchange be rewarded by it by a happy customer that happily buys their services from our industry. Now, maybe either you or Hans, but I think I will ask Hans. Hans, he was talking about some of the changes that we are working on and implementing changes as we are speaking. For instance, the LTA as a better milestone than the NFP, which is pretty technical, I believe, for everybody. So anybody on this call that has a challenge in understanding our 3-letter codes, don't hesitate to raise a hand and ask what we're talking about. The latest time of availability, whether that can be satisfied with notified for delivery. That's what we're talking about, right, John? Now my question is, it's great, but you said that these are all in development, right? So, sorry, Hans, I was talking to Hans. And did I say John? I meant Hans. Hans, when you said that we're developing these systems for latest time of availability, doesn't it mean that you have to rebuild your systems? And is that something that you want to do? How do you? Is that? I would like to see. Why would you want to overhaul your system then? Hans is frozen. Yeah. Okay, that is the. But then maybe Kirsten, maybe you can talk about that a little bit. If you're the other forwarder, these changes are important to the industry. We believe that's why we're working on them with you. But they do come at a cost, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been on this journey for quite a long time, and I think a lot of the forwarding members in this group they're very committed, and they have really contributed over the past decades, one could say, to create the standards that we have agreed to, and be part of that discussion. So I think a lot of us have already along that journey considered to ingrain the agreed MOP milestones and parameters into our operational system. I mean, I can speak for us that, and I think this is the case for a lot of the other members, airlines, forwarders alike, that have really built their quality management system on the shipment planning, the operational planning around the agreed Cargo IQ milestones and parameters and exception codes even. So I think it's not really new to us. We have always considered it along the way, and speaking for us here at Kühne+Nagel, we're driving our operational process based on the route map planning. So it's really ingrained into our operational system that we've only upgraded some years ago. So that route map is really driving all the operational processes. What has to happen next? What's outstanding? What do we have to follow up on? So yes, there is investment, and maybe we cannot, as an industry, always translate everything immediately. We know we have a pipeline. We know there's a lot of other priorities coming up, and a lot of other topics arising constantly. But this is something that should be so basic to the DNA of us as industry members that it definitely needs to be considered and continuously adapted into our operational processes and systems.
Okay, well, that is a very fair point. And what I hear is that Cargo IQ being a community, all the members commit to making these changes as well, right? So it's not just rolling out a standard; it's also committing to implementing that. Right,
and that's the big point. I think it was a learning experience. I think for a lot of members of Cargo IQ along the way, is that it's not about being a member, having the certificate to show. It is really about committing to the standards and making tangible and substantial changes, possibly in the operational process and in the systems. So that was certainly a learning experience, I would think, for some of the members. And we're still as we know, addressing this in the membership, right? So
yeah,
some
sure.
changes happen quicker than yeah, for some than for others maybe.
Yeah, I'm very much involved in that process, and I know we're always trying to balance implementation speed with involvement. Everybody needs to be involved and have time to implement, and we want to do it tomorrow as well, or actually yesterday. No, that is very true. But with that in mind, John, you said that you were working on making sure that you ask whatever you agree with the carrier, and I will ask Frosty as well his view on that, because I have a question from the audience for Frosty in that respect. But you said that you want to make sure that your SLAs are reflecting what you can deliver on operationally, right? So that what you agree with your carriers is actually the same, more or less what you control your systems on. And you were saying a little bit about, well, it's a bit of a challenge that there is sometimes disalignment or not alignment between what you agree and what the carriers commit to in their offsets. Now, you are aware that there is, in the working group, there's a lot of talk at the moment implementing FIW. Frosty has mentioned those implementation stages as well. And maybe somebody can put there's a big echo. I don't know who does it. No, it's not with me. Anyway, so if you can kill your mic if you're not talking, fellow panelists. Anyway, so the question that I'm going to is, if we're implementing these things in CargoIQ like FIW, FOW, which Frosty alluded to, which is going to be important for managing your processes, how do you get involved with that, John? Do you feel that as a ground handler you can actually commit to that and actually bring your expertise forward and make us set standards that you can and want to implement?
Yes, I mean, as being part of the group, we're involved in the sub-working groups for the various subjects, whether it be the care planning or the FIW, FOW. It's equally in our interest to ensure messages like FIW, FOW are involved. Currently, a lot of the SLAs are measured from when the aircraft arrives to the breakdown of cargo. And of course, there's an element in there that sometimes is not under our control if we're not the ramp handling agent. So to get that distinction between the two is very important for us, because it truly measures what our performance is within that part of the supply chain. So I think the working groups have enabled us. I've certainly felt in the last few years that we've had a good voice in those groups, and as well as obviously other handling companies as well. So we seem to be well represented there. Where I was expressing maybe some frustration is sometimes we see some are measuring off the SLA, some are measuring off the offsets. They don't always align, and maybe they don't have to align. And then our visibility on the offsets at a group level, as a CargoIQ member level, then it's not easy for us to have visibility on that. Because of the way the CDMPs are set up. So that sometimes leads to us walking into meetings with customers where they're presenting information, we have information, and there's two sets of information, different sets of information. So that's where the challenges are. But certainly the communication within CargoIQ then allows us to be more involved in these going forward, with the likes of the process mapping, care mapping, and the FIW, FOW.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But what you're basically saying, it's great to have all these offsets and carriers committing to them, but they need to be communicated to you, and they need to match how the processes that are under your control are being evaluated. There's another party involved then, right? That's Frosty. What is your view on that? How can you help? And that's actually a question that doesn't come from me. That's a question that came from one of our attendees. Thank you. Keep those questions coming. But one of the questions is, how can carriers contribute to improving the issues raised by John here, where GHAs have limited visibility of the promised times to execute certain processes? And how does CargoIQ play a role there? What can we do differently?
Yeah, I guess can you hear me? Because there's some technical issues earlier.
There's echo. Just can all the other panelists maybe kill their microphone, because there's more than one Frosty at the moment.
Yeah, is it better? Okay, good. I think for that there would be some discussions further required in terms of like a particular CTO or RHO kind of standard. So there might be one CTO that is India, have certain offset, but there will be another CTO have another offset. So these are the questions that actually in the contractual discussions between the carriers, and how can they align the offset standard as part of the SLA. I think these are very key, and there's quite a bit of a change of the mindset of some carriers, because some might be sticking with the old SLA, but where actually if you have an offset, it will more be a outcome-driven kind of discussions. John, I saw you nodding on your head, so I hope actually you understand what I'm trying to say here as well.
Absolutely, and we do see some movement with some carriers, but as you say, then some are taking longer to come across to that way of thinking.
Yeah, I think that's actually important to the examples of some early success, and how we tell a good story about what will be a good implementation of those be like. And we should be really sharing some of this good story to the rest of the community, so that people can take this on and try to get all the old bricks out and rebuild the new standard.
That is true, Frosty, and it's not just your this rolling out the standards, presenting these. Like we said earlier, it's about all of us in Cargo IQ, ground handlers, forwarders, carriers, implementing those standards actually together with our IT partners. Because I think it's we have two IT partners here at the table, because Hans and Kirsten, their companies have built their own IT back office solutions, but there are also IT companies that provide these standards. And all of us in the community work on that. There are some questions that popped up through the site, if you allow me to have a look at them. There are some questions in general. I think Ben Ratzak and some others have referred to that, about statistics. And we have a lot of statistics that we can provide. We actually do partner up with various organizations like World Bank and World Trade Organizations, IATA on occasion, where we provide additional statistics that are outside of the Cargo IQ typical, let's say, performance reports. There is, however, a very, very, very strict rule in Cargo IQ, is that we are extremely confidential in our information. We never share individual performance of our members outside of the reports that we publish, and we never share them between our members. So we have a very strict data use policy. We get a lot of information. I think that we have the biggest database in the world on shipment movements for air cargo that anybody has. However, that information is very proprietary to use within Cargo IQ. But we do work on occasion with organizations like that. We have done some experiments with airports that were at that moment not the most successful, because we are also still stumbling into our data structures. But we are very much willing to work with all our members to provide industry data that helps the industry move forward. Anyway, that is too much talk from me. There was a trend to, there's a question of the trend towards digitalization of air cargo participants, carriers, forwarders, by creating and granting access to their own APIs for data access. Will Cargo IQ consider creating and granting access to its own API, say for the Air Cargo Intelligence Hub and or Encore to the public? Does any of our panel have an opinion to say on that? Because I know the answer, but I think that if you allow me to, because I think that just say it quickly. Yes, we are considering that. We're working on that, exactly that particular topic. But it's not an easy way forward. We have quite a lot of data use, let's say data use policies that protect us, and they're rightfully so. That opening up our information with APIs is on the next line of development, but it will still be limited to Cargo IQ members for now. What else in questions are there up there? That's it? Okay, now then taking it back to, for now, to the discussion at hand. And the last thing we heard said here was alluding to how we align our efforts. Now, Hans, can I take it back to you? You said that you wanted clarity on what was agreed, right? So how do you mentioned service parameters. Is this all that there is? Is it just these flight specific or not flight specific? It seems that there is more going on under the hood in CargoIQ than I just learned from what you're saying. And
yeah, the service parameters, from my point of view, is really giving us the chance to align our products and services which we are offering to our customers with the services or products the airlines offer us, so that we can really offer our customers a tailor-made service where we get also the commitment from the carriers that the cargo is on time available at destination. And this can be backed by the service level commitment, and it's manifested by the LTA.
Okay, so the LTA, which is, but it's still it's still under work, right? It's still wet paint, this LTA project.
That's true.
Yeah. So, but I know it's more than just wet paint, because we're very much in implementing this, and I think it would be good to provide a little bit of information there, that there is a project in CargoIQ at the moment where we are redesigning our planning and evaluation logic that would involve, for instance, creation of opportunities to implement time-defined products versus flight-specific products under the project of service parameters. There's other projects as well, and one of them is, for instance, a project that addresses the penetration of CargoIQ with its members. And maybe Kirsten, can you explain to us why it is so important that we measure all shipments? And this project is aiming at also capturing and planning for shipments that are, let's say, imperfect, where we don't have all the details. And isn't that, how can you call that quality when you're planning for things that are not complete, imperfect planning? How do you see that?
Well, I think in general, for all our end customers, really, what we're doing, the way we measure, the way we plan, the way we execute, in a way needs to be seamless to them. So there shouldn't be a difference between, you know, my customer X that is moving something from Hong Kong to Frankfurt should have different parameters applied than maybe something that moves from Hong Kong to Australia. We really should be applying the same standards, the same measurements, and this should be our ultimate aim. And that all needs to happen seamless between us as industry members and not so much visible to the customer. So the customer really should see the end result, which is a reliable planning, which is transparent visibility, and which is really a service commitment that we're all meeting. So I think the idea that we had as a membership group really is to say, how can we get to really giving that visibility to all shipments and applying the same standards to all shipments, and not showing, you know, what is easy and nice to show, we show, and what is maybe more difficult, where we have other providers maybe involved and it's not as easy to obtain the data or the visibility, or not as instantly as we like, that we then just ignore those shipments. I think that's a totally unacceptable position, and I think we've realized this in the industry over the past years, that we have to get away from that. And that brings us to the challenge of, but how do we close those gaps? So I think showing shipments, even if we know what the issues are that look a little bit more, you know, maybe imperfect or don't have the full visibility of the whole supply chain, at least being able to measure them to show what the LTA is, when the customer can expect the freight at destination is a lot better than just not showing them at all and have a big black hole. I don't think that's an alternative we want to keep working on. I don't know, Hans, how you see that?
Yeah, from my point of view, it's very important that we, at the moment, we have 80 to 90% penetration. Yeah, so we have to have 100% of the visibility of 100% of the shipments, because we transmit data to, as I said, to customers, to others. We feed our data warehouses, and if we have only 80%, then we have 20% of information not available. And also if it comes to actual events, we have problems for 20% of the shipments where we cannot provide this high quality data we have in Cargo IQ. We cannot provide this into our organization. And yeah, this visibility, 100% visibility, even if a shipment is or a plan is not complete, at the end of the day, we are getting something. And we have to go to this. We have to go step by step in this direction.
Yeah, I think that I should quote one of our board members, Mr. Glaser, who said recently, transparency is the most important thing that allows people to see what goes on, and then they can make up their mind what they want. And I think that is very much applicable here, trying to get transparency even on the moments that planning is tough. Now, planning being tough, I think that we're all in a time things are a bit tougher than we expected, and I was kind of wondering what time this question would come up. But how are we dealing with COVID? Isn't COVID stopping us to a large extent, or impacting the implementation of our projects? And how so? And is any of you, some of you are board members. We got 2 board members on this panel, but also from your operation, John, or from your life as a forwarder, Hans. Tell me, how's COVID impacting your ability to continue to focus on quality, planning, control, and evaluation, and Cargo IQ? And I don't know who wants to go first.
I don't mind starting there, Ariane. I mean, from our perspective, as I'm sure most of the businesses have had to have major changes in terms of the reaction to COVID and the impact of COVID. What we've seen ourselves is that now we effectively have resized our business. So but we still have a lot of the complexity, or most of the complexity, that we've had to deal with. So we are having to get smarter about it. So in terms of technologies, in terms of visibility, in terms of focus on what information is missing, and in terms of what impact that's having on us, we're very much focused on that, and it's gone higher up the agenda as a reaction to the COVID means. Even on the way to work this morning, on the radio they said that generally there's been 5 years of technology advancement in the last 5 months, just in general society, and we are seeing a proportion of that within our business. So there's a keenness to move faster. There's a keenness to implement more technology, more visibility, more planning. Of course, the question then comes how, and that's where involvement in this kind of panel helps us achieve that.
Very true. I like that statement. 5 years of let's say 5 years of innovation in 5 months of reality.
And I think the industry, if I can add, also the industry, I think, has realized as a whole, or society has realized as a whole the importance of air cargo, right? So we're not just anymore the fillers, uppers for the passenger flights, but we're actually driving the business at the moment. Not that it's something we want to be in, but I think it has put a spotlight on the importance of air cargo, and there has to be some investment in that area. Continuously.
Yeah, for many mixed carriers, it will be one of the biggest revenue streams for the coming years, cargo, more than their business class, first class, or economy products separate. Yes, sorry, go ahead. You're one of those carriers.
I think it's very true. For us, we are a mixed carrier. I think our chairman also have a mixed carrier. So you can tell actually the freighters and how we make use of the passenger aircraft to carry cargo are more important than ever in this special time. And I think at Cargo IQ, the board actually did give a green light to still go ahead some of the projects as planned, even though there are actually a few months of lag behind because of the activities that we might have actually in different locations. But we have still quite a number of working groups, meetings, and webinars like this one that we're having. I think I have most number of webinars that I've joined or Zoom meetings that I've joined ever in my past 20 odd years of history of working experience. So I think the world is changing and it's just moving faster than ever.
Yeah, I think we are all becoming a bit more cost focused as well, having to do the same and sometimes more with the same and quite often less resources. And this kind of maybe brings forward also the cost of failure. And I think that, Hans, I've heard you in the past talk about that, the cost of recovery when there is no information at hand. And your integration of your product of the door-to-air and air-to-door with the actual product of the ground handler through the carrier is vital there, right? This preventing cost of failure, you see that become more of an issue also down the line when maybe, I don't know, when like some COVID shipments, you may not be able or willing or you couldn't lose control on that because there's lives at stake.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of shipments which are COVID related to transport masks and all the stuff. But I think it's very important that we are not losing the momentum. Within Cargo IQ, we have all these online meetings, these soundboard meetings, the working group meetings, and I do not see any negative sign. Yeah, we have a full agenda of new projects which we want to develop and implement. And I do not see a reason why we should not go ahead. And so from my point of view, it's having all these new technologies with Teams, etc., available. It is still possible.
I'm fully with you, and for that, however, the challenge that we see now is that some of our members are mixed carriers, and they are not so much challenged in their cargo products, but they're existentially challenged as a company as a whole. And these challenges that they face on the passenger side are of such magnitude, it's almost impossible to protect and isolate the cargo side. But Cargo IQ is not one company. We are a lot of companies, and I think that we are sharing the burden together. And maybe if we have more companies on board, and I think that is taking us back to a little bit of our two of our strategic themes. One is measuring every shipment. That means we need all companies to join Cargo IQ, and also developing our membership means maybe we get more members. How can we do that? Do you have some ideas on that? Any of the panel? Are you yourself advocates of Cargo IQ, and or is there? What would you say to a company that's now thinking of joining Cargo IQ? How would you pull them across? Whether they're carrier, maybe each of you have a go on that. If you're a carrier, Frosty, you can start with that.
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I think first of all the GXJ that we try to contract with, the first question we ask is about whether you're a Cargo IQ forwarders. There are some might not be, so we'll have different process. So that's one part. And also I think very important point is actually our customers. If more of our customers actually asking, okay, are you a Cargo IQ members? Are you measuring us in terms of some of the product offering that they have? That will actually naturally come in place to say, okay, this is something that as a business need that we have. And I think it will help some of the challenge that Erin mentioned about some of the passengers only carriers, that they might actually facing more challenge than us as a mixed carriers, where actually the justification for the from the board or the directors would be like, okay, this is something that the customer need. So really try to retain that piece is actually quite key. So we need to keep talking about the importance of Cargo IQ and the importance of the development of it.
Okay, that is very true. So every carrier should want to join because it's better for them talking to their forwarders, and it's also an easier way of talking to their ground handlers, if I wrap it up a little bit. So it's a double-edged sword for the carrier that can do that. Now, and John, you as the ground handler, how do you feel with carriers walking up to you with all that data from Cargo IQ under their arms?
Well, we welcome any of the data, anything that helps us improve or identify where we need to improve, then we're very open to that. It's difficult for us to drive other people becoming members because we're the tail end of the kind of supply chain. But what we do when we're in discussions with airlines is make them aware of our involvement with the Cargo IQ so that they know that it's in our philosophy, it's in our ethos, it's in how we do things. And even if they're not members, then hopefully we're able to demonstrate what kind of business we are and the level of quality that we can offer them as they join us. So we're quietly pushing that agenda forward, but like I say, it has to come from the airlines for us, I think.
Yeah, so but I think it's safe to say that Cargo IQ, being an open industry encompassing community with everybody involved, what you do as a ground handler benefits the whole ground handling community. That's what we believe, and we certainly hope.
Yeah.
And so getting standards for how you agree with your carriers on what is performance and how you measure it, and getting to some standard of SLAs where you in the end up with a more unified interface between ground handlers and carriers on what to measure and what to agree on and how to carry on that performance of the ground handler into the products of the carriers. That is welcome, I would say, right?
Well, and we've made it more two-way as well, Ariane, in the sense of not only what we can deliver for them, but what we expect of them in order for us to deliver that for them. So the information flow has to come from them in a good quality and timely manner in order for us to perform at the level that they would expect us to. So we're equally confident in our own operation and to be able to expect that information coming into us in order to deliver that level of service, and that's been rewarded.
And that is what Cargo IQ as a community functions really. Yep. At least we want to, is providing a platform for everybody to talk with all the partners in the industry, focusing at an industry interest of improving our quality, right?
But I think in the past it's very much been that the handler has been told by the carrier. Because we're more informed now, I think we're better at being able to say, well, that's not possible, or if it is possible, it needs this time frame, or whatever it might be. So that's a much more two-way street interaction now than it has been in the past.
I think that is pretty much true of every chain in the supply chain. I'm quite sure that Hans and Kirsten will be able to tell you exactly how their shippers come to them and dictating conditions. But the more we as individuals in our industry develop our knowledge and are able to express our expertise and say to our customers, whether they're shippers, whether they are forwarders, whether they're carriers, whether the better we are in expressing, okay, this is what we need you to do to allow us to service you better, I think they will also, all of them, from shipper to carrier, be better procurement people. Now, Kirsten, that is true, I hope, right?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, I mean, basically to kind of just re-emphasize what everybody has already said. I think also initially when Henrik mentioned, it's a fragmented industry, there's a lot of players in the industry. I think what we have to make sure is that every party involved in the movement of a shipment plays their role and takes on the responsibility of providing, real-time information and visibility. And we have now agreed on this standard. So, we should welcome everybody and encourage everybody in the industry that's not already there to become members. I know you can be critical of things that maybe don't work perfectly yet, but we are basically living as a membership organization from the input and the contribution of everybody. So I would like to see, as many parties as possible to be members, to make sure we are transmitting what we have agreed to transmit in real time, because me as a forwarder, I have to give the visibility, or want to give the visibility in a limited way to my customer, only what's relevant for them. I don't want to flood them with all the milestones that we have agreed in Cargo IQ. That's things that, as Hans said, I use to manage my operational process, but then I want to have certain information that I share with my customer that is relevant to him, and that needs to be instant, real time, and that means everybody involved, needs to commit to providing that information real time. Me as a forwarder, I don't want to be the one filling the gaps for people that don't transmit, right? I don't want to be calling after after carriers to collect information 24 hours after departure. You know, that's too late. So we really need to all play our part. That would be my message.
Okay, well, that's a very good message, actually. I think, Kirsten, that is, thank you for that. And it actually brings us to the final bit of today's webinar. And I really enjoyed this chat with all of you. And we do not do this often enough to sit down together with a group of experts like yourself to discuss what we can do better within Cargo IQ and the industry as a whole. And we do a lot of these discussions within Cargo IQ, but to have it on a public podium like this is very valid and very good. Thank you for that. I think that if I wrap this up, I think I've been speaking to representatives of the complete supply chain that are actually touching cargo. I would like to have a ramp operator from your colleagues, John, maybe one day your ramp people will join us. And I think us introducing Cargo IQ, and I don't think we made it very clear to the audience, but we're introducing new ways of registering the handover moment from the warehouse operator to the ramp operator. Now we are going to therefore be far better able to explain where problems occur, whether they are in the warehouse or on the ramp. And I hope that maybe there's never a problem on the ramp, but maybe there is. I don't know. I think it would be more interesting now for ramp operators to step up as well and join our initiative. They're more than welcome to do so. I think that, however, from all of you, what I hear is that planning and control is important. And it's not just tracking and tracing. It's not just knowing where shipments are. It's the combination of knowing where they are and where they're supposed to be. And being clear on that. Where is your shipment supposed to be? When is it supposed to be arriving at me, airline, at my premises? When are we as forwarders supposed to deliver them to those airlines? And when can we as forwarders expect them back on destination airport? So where is the shipment supposed to be is a very important element. And that is something, in all honesty, that has been forgotten about a lot of industry partners outside of the cargo industry already. Express operators or a lot of other modes, they don't tell their customers when it's going to be. It's just a progress update. This is where we've seen your shipment last. And it's that link between this is where we know your shipment is and this is what we intend to do with it. It allows Hans and Kirsten and other forwarders to relax and know that the shipment is still under control. Otherwise, they have to guess at it all the time. But that's important. And it's not just planning and control. It's not just agreeing on shipments and executing that service. Because we've been working on that. It's also looking at what you're doing and trying to find ways to do that better. So planning, control, and evaluation, because only then can we learn. And that's why we have these new projects like we touched on. And unfortunately, there's so much technology and technical terms involved in explaining what we're doing. But the care mapping initiative, where we actually want to plan and give transparency on the execution of care towards shipments and not just their movement, is extremely important to our industry, especially now when we're seeing these COVID and other pharmaceuticals. But there's not just that; it's also our perishables, and it's our animals, and it's even our deceased friends and relatives. There's so many shipments that we move around that need and actually earn extra care. And managing that process, not just with the label on the door saying, trust us, what we do is right, but showing what you're doing, creating transparency, to quote Mr. Glaser one more time, is extremely important. And that's where we can work with the rest of the industry. That's where we shine. And finding ways to communicate service parameters is important outside of Cargo IQ. It's in the digitalization effort of our industry. It's important that we can agree. It's in modern distribution systems. We are not ever going to define what people sell, but we will create the canvas on which they can explain what they just agreed on. And that's important in every step of the way down the line. And for me, I'm just very happy to be able to drum up all this high-level talented, inspirational people like yourselves. And I just had Henrik is still in the call, but I just had an introduction by Henrik Ambach of Emirates. And there are so many other people, every working group that we sit as a management team. And I am blessed with a great management team when we have Chris Davies and Laura Rodriguez and Mega Palkar that I work with as a management team, but we're not doing the work. The work is done by our members, and every time it's surprising to see how welcoming people are to other people's opinions and to work together, and how much effort our members as companies put into the industry's benefit. This wraps up our discussion for today. It doesn't wrap up or close our openness to discuss. So anytime you want to further this discussion, reach out to any of the panelists or myself or my colleagues from the management team. We would love to continue more, but it's 3:30. We promised to go off air now. Any final thoughts from our members? Panels are welcome. Otherwise, I'm extremely happy with all the questions we got. We didn't have an opportunity to address all because a lot of them were too technical. But maybe if all of you are happy with this, I would have to call it shots. And wish you a great day. Thank you for being here all the way from Hong Kong or from wherever you are in Europe. And the rest of the people attending, thank you all for attending. And don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.